The sound of the rain tapping against the window echoed through the silence that had settled between us. Jessica sat across from me, her eyes downcast, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her blouse. The tension in the air was palpable, a thick fog that threatened to suffocate us both. "Jess, we need to talk about this," I said, my voice strained. "We can't keep going on like this." She looked up at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know. Matt, I'm sorry. I never meant for things to get so out of hand." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "What happened to us, Jess? We used to be so happy, so in love. Now it feels like we're constantly walking on eggshells around each other." She shook her head, a sad smile playing on her lips. "I wish I had the answer, Matt. Things just changed. We both changed." We fell into another uncomfortable silence, the weight of our problems pressing down on us like a heavy blanket. It was then that I made the suggestion that would set in motion a chain of events that would change our lives forever. "Maybe we should try couples therapy." Jessica's eyes widened slightly, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flash of panic cross her features. "Therapy? You think it's that bad?" I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. "I think we owe it to ourselves to try. We used to be so happy, Jess. Don't you want to fight for that?" She nodded slowly, her fingers tightening around mine. "Okay, if you think it'll help, I'm willing to try." And so began our journey into the world of couples therapy. At first, the sessions seemed to be going well. We aired our grievances, shared our frustrations, and worked on communication techniques. But as the weeks passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jessica was holding something back. It all came to a head one fateful session when our therapist, Dr. Reynolds, asked Jessica a seemingly innocuous question. "Jessica, is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?" There was a moment of silence, and then Jessica took a deep breath. "Actually, yes. There is something I've been keeping from you both." My heart began to race, a sinking feeling settling in the pit of my stomach. I had a bad feeling about whatever she was about to say. "Matt, I haven't been completely honest with you," she said, her voice trembling. "A few months ago, I slept with 3 different men. On the same night." The room seemed to spin around me as her words sank in. I felt like I had been punched in the gut, the air leaving my lungs in a rush. "What?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. Jessica's eyes filled with tears, and she reached out to me, but I recoiled from her touch. "I'm so sorry, Matt. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. But there's more." I steeled myself, bracing for whatever else she was about to hit me with. "One of those men, his name is Paul, and I've been in contact with him since that night." The betrayal cut deep, like a knife twisting in my heart. I felt sick to my stomach, the world around me fading into a blur as the weight of her confession settled over me. "How could you do this to me, Jessica?" I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "After everything we've been through together, how could you betray me like this?" She sobbed, her shoulders shaking. "I don't know, Matt. I don't have an excuse. I was lost, and I made a terrible mistake. But I love you, and I want to make this work, if you'll let me." In that moment, I felt torn. Part of me wanted to walk away, to leave this betrayal and heartache behind. But another part of me, the part that still loved her deeply, wanted to fight for our marriage. As the session ended and we walked out into the rain, I made a decision. I would try to work through this, to save our marriage, no matter how difficult it might be. Little did I know, the unraveling had only just begun. The weeks following Jessica's confession were a whirlwind of emotion. Our therapy sessions became increasingly tense, with Dr. Reynolds constantly trying to mediate between us. Jessica would apologize profusely, tears streaming down her face, while I sat stone-faced, my heart hardened by her betrayal. "I'm so sorry, Matt," she would sob. "Please, you have to believe me. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake that I'll regret for the rest of my life." I would nod numbly, the words washing over me like a gentle rain, but doing nothing to quell the storm raging within me. One evening, after a particularly heated session, I stormed out of Dr. Reynolds' office, my fists clenched at my sides. The anger and hurt coursing through my veins was like a fire, consuming me from the inside out. "Matt, wait." Jessica called after me, but I kept walking, my strides long and purposeful. I needed to get away, to clear my head. Before I knew it, my feet had carried me to a dimly lit bar a few blocks away. I slipped inside, the smoky air and the dull roar of conversation enveloping me like a warm embrace. I made my way to the bar, signaling the bartender for a drink. As I waited, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Turning, I came face to face with two women, both of them strikingly beautiful. "You look like you could use some company," the taller one said, her voice like honey. "I'm Lily, and this is Kelly." I eyed them warily, but there was something in their smiles that disarmed me, that promised a temporary escape from the pain I was feeling. "Matthew," I said, nodding in greeting. We struck up a conversation, and before long, I found myself pouring my heart out to these two strangers. They listened intently, their eyes filled with understanding and sympathy. "That's just awful," Kelly said, placing a comforting hand on my arm. "No one deserves to be betrayed like that." "You're too good for her, Matthew," Lily chimed in. "A strong, handsome man like you deserves so much better." Their words were like a balm to my wounded soul, and as the drinks flowed, I found myself growing increasingly drawn to them. "Why don't we get out of here?" Lily suggested, her voice low and sultry. Against my better judgment, I agreed, and the three of us made our way back to my house. As we stepped inside, I was met with the sight of Jessica sitting on the couch, her eyes red and puffy from crying. "Matt, thank God you're home," she said, rising to her feet. "I was so worried about you." That's when she noticed Lily and Kelly standing beside me, their arms linked through mine. "What's going on?" she asked, her brow furrowing in confusion. "What's going on?" I echoed, my voice dripping with venom. "You really have the nerve to ask me that after what you did?" Jessica's eyes widened as realization dawned on her. "Matt, please, don't do this." But it was too late. The anger and hurt had taken hold, and I was determined to make her pay for her actions. "You wanted to sleep around, Jess?" I sneered. "Well, now it's my turn." With that, I grabbed Lily and Kelly by the hands and led them towards the bedroom, leaving Jessica standing there, stunned and devastated. The next morning, I awoke to the sound of Jessica's sobs. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, her head in her hands. "How could you do this to me, Matt?" she cried. "After everything, how could you hurt me like this?" I sat up, feeling oddly detached from the situation. "You brought this on yourself, Jess. You betrayed me, and now you're paying the price." Her eyes hardened, and she rose to her feet, her shoulders squared. "Fine, if that's how you want to play it, then I want a divorce. And I want everything, the house, the cars, the assets, all of it." I couldn't help but laugh, a bitter, humorless chuckle. "You really think I'm going to let you walk away with everything after what you've done?" Jessica's nostrils flared, and she took a step towards me, her finger pointed accusingly. "You don't have a choice, Matt. You're a lawyer. You know the laws. I'm entitled to half of everything we own." But I wasn't about to let her win that easily. I was a lawyer, yes, but I was also a master at bending the rules to my advantage. "We'll see about that," I said, a plan already forming in my mind. Over the next few days, I worked tirelessly, consulting with my colleagues and studying the finer points of family law. And then, when Jessica least expected it, I struck. I created a family trust and transferred all of our assets into it, effectively cutting her off from everything we had built together. When she received the divorce papers, her face contorted with rage. "You can't do this to me, Matt," she screamed, her voice shrill and desperate, but I only smiled, feeling a twisted sense of satisfaction at having outmaneuvered her. "I just did, Jess, and there's nothing you can do about it." As she stormed out of the house, her belongings stuffed haphazardly into a suitcase, I couldn't help but feel a sense of victory. But deep down, I knew that this was far from over. In the weeks following our bitter divorce, I found a twisted sense of satisfaction in knowing that I had emerged victorious. Jessica had been left with nothing, forced to start over from scratch. It was the ultimate revenge, or so I thought. Little did I know that my actions had set in motion a chain of events that would come back to haunt me in ways I never could have imagined. It was a few weeks later when I got news of Jessica's birthday party. At first, I scoffed at the idea of attending, but then a thought occurred to me. What better way to truly break her than to show up and flaunt my victory in front of her friends and family? So, on the night of the party, I donned my best suit and made my way to the posh restaurant where the celebration was being held. As I approached the entrance, I could hear the sounds of laughter and music spilling out onto the street. Stepping inside, I was immediately greeted by the sight of Jessica, radiant in a deep crimson dress that hugged her curves in all the right places. She was laughing and chatting with a group of friends, seemingly without a care in the world. That's when I noticed him, Paul, the man she had been sleeping with. He was standing beside her, his arm draped casually around her waist. My blood boiled at the sight of them together, and without thinking, I strode across the room, pushing my way through the crowd until I was standing directly in front of them. Well, 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 I sneered. My eyes narrowed. If it isn't the happy couple. Jessica's face paled as she turned to face me, her eyes wide with shock and fear. Matt, what are you doing here? I just came to wish you a happy birthday, darling, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. And to introduce everyone to your little boy toy. Paul took a step forward, his fists clenched at his sides. You need to leave, man. This is Jessica's night, and you're not welcome here. But I wasn't about to be intimidated. Not after everything Jessica had put me through. Oh, I'm not going anywhere, I said, my voice rising above the din of the party. In fact, I think it's time everyone here learned the truth about our dear Jessica. Jessica's eyes widened in horror as she realized what I was about to do. Matt, please, don't do this. But it was too late. The words were spilling from my mouth like venom, poisoning the air around us. Did you all know that this woman, the one you're here to celebrate, is nothing more than a lying, cheating whore? I shouted, my voice carrying across the room. A hush fell over the crowd as all eyes turned towards us, shocked and uncomfortable. That's right, I continued, my gaze fixed on Jessica's stricken face. This woman, my wife, slept with not one, not two, but 3 different men on the same night. And she's been carrying on an affair with this pathetic excuse for a man ever since. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd, and I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction as I watched Jessica's world crumble around her. That's when I noticed a woman standing beside Paul, her face twisted in a mix of anger and heartbreak. It was his wife, Jane. Is this true, Paul? She asked, her voice trembling. Have you been cheating on me with her? Paul opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He simply stood there, eyes downcast, his silence speaking volumes. Jane let out a choked sob and turned on her heel, fleeing the party with tears streaming down her face. In the aftermath of my explosive reveal, the party descended into chaos. Guests began to leave in droves, their faces etched with disgust and disappointment. Even Jessica's closest friends couldn't bring themselves to look at her. As for Paul, he simply stood there, shell-shocked, watching as his life unraveled before his very eyes. And me? I felt a strange sense of catharsis wash over me. I had finally gotten my revenge, and it was more satisfying than I could have ever imagined. But as I made my way out of the party, the weight of my actions began to settle over me like a heavy shroud. I had crossed a line, and there was no going back. In the days and weeks that followed, I tried to move on with my life, to put the past behind me. I even met someone new, a woman named Sarah who seemed to understand the pain I had been through. But no matter how hard I tried, the scars of my betrayal and manipulation remained, like a constant reminder of the person I had become. I had won the battle, but at what cost? In my quest for revenge, I had lost a part of myself, a part that I feared I might never get back. And so, as I lay awake at night, Sarah's soft breathing beside me, I couldn't help but wonder, was it all worth it in the end? This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.